on this day in 1992, Tiger Woods entered the event. So you think Gene McEver, who is the most dominant athlete in Tennessee football history? And notice that I'm saying athlete, not player. And Dylan, you got a great point. I'm going to get to that. But you say Gene McEver, and why?
Yes. I first want to say dominant is relative. So this does not mean that I think Gene McEver is more dominant than Jamal Lewis in terms of an athlete at running back, because they both played running back.
This is era too. I mean,
yeah,
you're talking about if we go back in your era, offensive linemen were 220 pounds. So we're factoring that in.
right. Exactly. All dominance is relative. Usain Bolt is faster than Jesse Owens, but Jesse Owens was more dominant in his Olympics than Usain Bolt was in his. Does that make sense?
Yeah, listen to this. Orange Blood says define dominant, total stats. No, that would be like a Peyton Manning or maybe even a Hendon Hooker for 1 year. But dominant to me is I am a better natural raw athlete than you when I line up on the field.
Yeah, so who stood out over the rest of the field as an athlete is what we're bringing
athletically,
yes.
Right? I mean, let's face it. There was one guy that played defensive tackle next to John Henderson that was probably worthy of being on this list, but he was kind of a goofball and had an anger issue. So I'm not sure that you would consider him. So you can get knocked off the list by poor play. And there have been a couple of other incredible athletes that never panned out, James Banks. But yes, we're defining dominant as I am just a better athlete than you. Take it, suck it. Too bad.
Yes. Relative to competition, that's Gene McEver. He would have won the Heisman had they actually had that voting during that time. I mean, Tennessee's been cursed with the Heisman. The 1 year they would have had a clear-cut Heisman winner. There was no Heisman. But yes, Gene McEver had 5 touchdowns rushing in a game against South Carolina. I want to say that was in 1929. He was the first national superstar that Tennessee ever had. I mean, the guy was just absolutely incredible as a running back. He's got some rushing records that stand to this day. And I think because of that, I probably have to go with him. Robert Nealon, I think, consistently said that is the best player he ever coached. And Sports Illustrated did do a retroactive Heisman Trophy award for everybody in the years before the trophy officially came out. Yeah, they did this years ago. And they awarded Gene McEver the Heisman Trophy for the 1929 season. He was a stud at halfback, just an absolute stud. So I will go with him.
Interesting. Now, Dylan brought up a really good point on both of our guys, because I would go with Doug Atkins because I've seen him jump over offensive linemen, which is just bizarre. You go with Gene McEver. Now, the other two that are getting votes, Reggie White and Eric Berry. White, 63% of the vote. Berry, 26% of the vote. Atkins, 9%. McEver, 2%. Now, one of the reasons that those older guys that we named aren't getting as much love, I think, is because they're older guys. You got to really know history. However, Dylan brings up a great point on the message board. This is before desegregation. So does that factor into your decision at all?
It would if we were naming greatest or best. We didn't say that. We said most dominant. So most dominant means relative to who you're playing, relative to your competition at the time. So yes, it was desegregated, but that doesn't really matter because it was who towered more over their competition. Reggie White and Eric Berry are better athletes than Gene McEver. I don't know Doug Atkins. I actually think Doug Atkins may be that guy that's kind of a victim of being stuck in a segregation time, but would have dominated in any time, so
I mean, Doug Atkins was 240 pounds. I mean, he'd be a good edge rusher right now if he was if he was 19 years old. I mean, people that don't know Doug Atkins, he jumped over offensive linemen literally.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Babe Ruth thing. Like, I think Babe Ruth still would have been great in any era. To be fair, Babe Ruth was actually half black. That's an unknown. That's a kind of a secret that a lot of people don't know. But Babe Ruth actually was. There's a lot of research on. He was partially African American. But
aren't we all?
He got white passing. He was not allowed in certain clubs in Boston when he played. And then when he went to New York, he would frequent the nightclubs in Harlem more than anywhere else. And that's something that's oh yeah. So I would probably go So again, dominant does not, I get the point. And that's why, like, but you don't have to take it with a grain of salt when you're talking dominant, because dominant only means relative to the competition in front of you. So G. McEver stood out more over the competition, and Doug Atkins stood out more over the competition than a lot of these other people who were probably better athletes, even though the competition was worse. To put it in perspective, Tennessee has had better football teams than Boise State over the past 10, 15 years, but Boise State's been more dominant against their level of competition than Tennessee has.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't put it better myself. Hit that like and subscribe button. Please do that. We greatly appreciate it. Kalen brought up a good one as well. Leonard Little. You talk about, I mean, yeah, that's a really good one. We might reset the poll, frankly, because of that.
But they didn't give him a chance to be as dominant as he should have been, because his only dominant year was 95. Because 96 he got hurt, and 97 they moved him to middle linebacker.
Yeah, but he was still one of the top. I mean, I'm with you. Okay, don't get too defensive on me. He should have played defensive end, but he was still a top 5 Mike backer, which is insane. And he was way out of position. He's the most out of position player that I've ever seen in watching football in 50 years. And he was still okay.
So he's more out of position than Jalen Hurd at running back?
Debatable. I'll definitely give you that one. City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. Go to cityheatandair.com, cityheatandair.com. If we might change it up. If we changed it up to just the segregation or desegregation years, who would it be? Most dominant athlete?
It's clearly Reggie White at that point. What Reggie White did in 1983 was freakish, because he had defensive end, he had edge rusher athleticism, but he was huge and could line up in the middle. The funnier question would be, all right, this is hilarious, but Dave, we have to ask it. Post integration, who's the most dominant white Tennessee athlete?
I don't know who's the wide receiver that they had. Craig
Faulkner.
Yes, Craig Faulkner. Maybe it's.
I'm going Jason Witten.
Okay, let's not go White. Who is the most so desegregation in college football would have been when? Colton
college football or Tennessee football?
I kind of need to go across the board, don't I? If I just go Tennessee,
college football, you can go back to the 20s for that with college football, depending on where you are. There were some places.
Give me a year. You say modern era.
I mean, I'm going to say when college football was fully integrated, which I'm going to say 1972.
Okay,
I'm roughly saying 72.
Desegregation. So who would you have on the list? I'm putting Leonard Little on the list for sure.
Leonard Little, Reggie White, Eric Berry. Man, John Henderson was a freak, wasn't he?
I think Albert Hainsworth was a bigger.
Not in college. Not in college. John Henderson ran a 4.740.
Okay, I think Albert had a better sting. Okay, but anyway, let's do this. Reggie White. Now I'm going to knock Reggie White for a second. God rest his soul, because he had one good year. He wasn't incredibly motivated for his second year. Do we keep Eric Berry on there? It was a very dominant year. We keep Eric Berry on there, and then since 1970, who else would it be? Dominant athlete. Willie Galt gets a vote. Do you want John Henderson on here?
Could we throw Condridge in there? What about Condridge?
No, I think Heath Schuler was a better athlete.
Okay, Heath Schuler was probably better. Okay,
I'm going to go John Henderson and Albert Hainsworth.
What about Carl Pickens? Guys, Carl Pickens over all of them. The guy he would have been an All-American defensive back and just played wide receiver.
Okay, then I'll go Carl Pickens. Reggie White, Eric Berry, John Henderson, Carl Pickens. You can go ahead and vote now. And if you got any other...
Oh, so you're leaving off Leonard? You are leaving off Leonard Little? I told you could cut off John Henderson and put Leonard Little on if you want to.
Let me see if... Reggie White. Oh, yes, I did. All right, so we're going to do this again. But we're going to... Nobody got a vote there. Okay, so let's try this one more time. Most dominant athlete... We've made this incredibly hard. Since 1970 for the for Tennessee football. Okay.
This is really hard, by the way, because I could have named Cordarrelle Patterson, who was the best player I've ever seen with the ball in his hands.
Okay, I'm going to go Leonard Little. I'm going to go Cordarrelle Patterson.
Oh, I didn't say put him on there. I just said I could go there.
I'm putting him on there because I want a skill position player. All right, and so Reggie White, and then who's my last one?
Then we got to put Eric Berry on there. We got to put Eric Berry.
Okay, well then I'm putting Eric Berry over Carl Pickens. Over Cordero. Okay, Berry.
Yeah. So Carl Pickens and Cordero and Eric Berry. Yeah, Carl Pickens, Eric Berry.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. That took a little bit too long, but there you go. Well, since 1970, revote on that. We want to know what you have to think about that.